Hello. Good morning, everybody. Once again, we don't have a master of ceremonies. We're Fulbright people. We're the masters of our own destiny. So I will kind of play host here for the first part. The introductions will be done on the panels of the speakers, except for Majkl Verner, who I will introduce when he gets to speak. A few announcements. The major announcement is the following. We do have translation into English, so if anybody wants to speak what we colloquially call our language on the panels, feel free to do so. The others, during the coffee break, can pick up the earphones for that, so please do that. I don't have much to say in the beginning in terms of welcome remarks, except for thank everybody, thank the American Embassy. Thank Ivan Vujačić, the vice president of this organization, Katarina Beširević, Sanja, who's helping on this, Simona, Professor Šoškić, and Isidora Nikolić-Savin, who are in the executive board of this organization, and all the other people who are part of this film that you're going to see, and everybody put an effort to make this possible. Thank you all again for coming. I hope you interact a lot, and I hope that this is the beginning of a deeper interaction between our organizations in the region, and to that effect, saying that, thank you once again, and I will let the movie roll, watch the film, and then we'll continue. Thank you.
Mladi, obrazovani ljudi su apsolutno neophodni. Od njih zavisi budućnost. Ako nemamo njih ovde, onda naša budućnost baš nije mnogo svetla.
Ideja Fulbright programa je da znanje i vještine koje steknemo boraveći na nekoj od institucija u SAD-u prenesemo u Srbiju.
A s tim da sam od uvek sanjala o tome da završim master u Americi.
Gospodin Fulbright je bio američki senator iz države Arkansa na američkom jugu. On je ustanovio Fulbrajtov program, pre toga je bio profesor prava i ušao u politiku 40. godina. On je poznati senator zbog toga što je bio predsjednik spoljno-političkog odbora američkog senata i njegov mandat je najduži od svih senatora koji su održali tu funkciju. Bio je oštri protivnik američkog intervencionizma, sve svojih uverenja i izgubio je senatsko mesto 1974. godine i nastavio da se bavi međunarodnim pravom. To je bio jedan dosledan čovjek koji se držao svojih principa. Fulbright je želeo da ustanovi osnove za stvaranje mira u svetu i to je smatrao da to može da se postigne kroz razmenu akademskih ljudi, intelektualaca koji bi kroz tu razmenu razmenjivali znanje, racionalno pristupali problemima i stekli osjećaj za drugog. Drugim rečima da stvori empatiju prema drugom i njihovim pozicijama kako bi lakše došlo do dijaloga.
Biti izložen različitim i drugačijem mišljenju čoveka može zaista da gurne, da raste i da bude bolji.
Kad sam se vratio sa tim znanjem u zemlju, počeo sam da radim na modelima Svetske banke. Bez Kornela i onog znanja koji sam tamo stekao, to ne bi mogao.
Postoji taj kod ljudi potreba i entuzijazam da rade, da se usavršavaju i onda to je teško poremetiti, jer to je ona unutarnja ljudska potreba umetnika, razumete, tako da je to na vrlo čvrstim nogama.
1963. godine u oktobru Tito je bio u posjeti Sjedinjenim Američkim Državama i primio ga je Kennedy. To je poslednji strani državnik kojeg je Kennedy video pre njegovog ubistva mjesec dana kasnije u Dallasu. Tito je bio vidno potresen. Došao u američku ambasadu da potpisuje knjigu žalosti. Tamo je sačekao Walter Roberts, koji je bio čovjek za odnose s javnošću američke ambasade. Pošto je Tito prethodno rekao da treba učiniti nešto da se približi naše zemlje i narodi posle ovakve tragedije koja se desila američkom narodu, tako je iduće godine, 64. godine, senator Fulbright došao u Jugoslaviju, bio više od 7 dana, boravio u Beogradu, u Zagrebu, u Dubrovniku, u Sloveniji da se vidio sa Titom i program je potpisan novembra 1964. godine. Udruženje Fulbright i prijatelji je nastalo tako što je Fulbrajtov program bio raskinut sa Jugoslavijom jer je Miloševićev režim ušao u sukob sa cijelim svetom, dobili smo sankcije, pa deo toga je bilo manifestovano u tome što je ukinut Fulbrajtov program. I mogu da kažem da smo to učinili iz nekog tipa inata, da ne budemo izbačeni iz sveta, da sačuvamo u životu ideju Fulbrajtovih stipendija i razmene s inostranstvom i tako je to udruženje počelo. Mnogi značajne ličnosti su imali Fulbrajtovu stipendiju, 53 Nobelovca su bili Fulbrajtovci, 42 premijera, predsjednika država su bili Fulbrajtovci, preko 70 ljudi koji su dobili Pulitzerovu nagradu su bili Fulbrajtov stipendisti. I to svedoči o tome da je potreban određen kvalitet da bi se ta stipendija dobila.
Postdiplomska škola nije baš bila nešto napredna. Ja sam morao sam da učim iz knjiga koje sam kupovao u inostranstvu i onda sam shvatio jednog momenta da to ima kraj i da moram negde da odem, da ozbiljno provedem bar godinu dana, da razgovaram sa ljudima koji znaju više od mene. Tu je Fulbright bio zaista idealno rešenje.
Ceca Bojković, ona je zvezda našeg pozorišta, jedna kreativna umetnica i žena angažovana na pitanjima koje su bitne za ovaj narod i ovu zemlju.
Koncept te naše stipendije, Fulbrajtove, te godine, 69. bio je da mi u stvari prikažemo naš program na našem fakultetu dramskih umetnosti i da mi u suštini nekako njih edukujemo i prenesemo im svoje iskustvo. Vrlo interesantno da smo mi, koji smo, znate, u to vreme svi smo imali mnogo veliko poštovanje prema velikom svetu. Tako da smo bili iznenađeni vrlo prijatno, ali je desilo se upravo to da smo mi njih fascinirali, a ne oni nas.
Jedan od centralnih radova koje sam ja pisao na masteru jeste i bavi se rizicima rudarenja u Latinskoj Americi. Onda je negde, naravno, čitava ideja i motivacija bila za to upravo ono što se dešava u mojoj zemlji i da to uporedim sa potencijalnim posljedicama projekta Jadar. I negde je to bila jedna od glavnih motivacija da se ja aktivnije uključim u politiku nakon što sam se vratio u Srbiju, jer mislim da je to jedna od stvari koja se dešava ovde, koja je centralna za očuvanje upravo naše zajednice.
Thank you Fulbright for this amazing experience and thank you for school for literally everything. It was truly an honor of my life and I would rather not spend these last 2 years anywhere else.
Ja sam otišla u Ameriku sa idejom da se bavim temom međunarodnih odnosa i bezbednosti. U jednom trenutku sam odslušala predavanje profesorke Valerie Hudson, koja je jedna od najvećih stručnjakinja na svetu što se tiče žena i bezbednosti. I dok sam slušala to njeno predavanje, sve mi je imalo smisla do tada u mom životu iz tog njenog predavanja i odlučila sam da ipak time želim da se bavim tada. Na toj temi sam na kraju masterirala, na neki način se time i danas bavim i time želim zaista da se bavim do kraja života.
Fulbright ima neki svoj odličan sistem vrednosti gde je ono što je suština je da su svi ljudi jednaki, da se brišu neke granice među državama, što sam ja nekako podržavala i ranije, ali kad ste dio toga, onda vidite da to zaista nekako u praksi funkcioniše.
U Americi je naš novinar Adam Santovac, on je trenutno i stipendista Fulbright programa vlade Sjedinjenih Američkih Država.
Dokumentarni film Adama Santovca. Ana je tu.
Ja sam bio 2 godine odsutan na postdiplomskim studijama na New York univerzitetu. Ovo je moj diplomski film. U novinarstvu je jako važno da se distanciramo od svih tema i da ih sagledamo objektivnije i upravo mi je Fulbright program pomogao da izađem iz ovog našeg mehura samobitnosti u kojem smo svi u Srbiji i dakle da samu Srbiju i naše probleme sagledam sa distance, objektivnije.
Pa ja mislim da Fulbright pokazuje koje su prave vrednosti u jednom civilizovanom društvu. Insistira na obrazovanju i na vraćanju ljudi tamo odakle su došli da bi to mogli da prenesu u svojoj zemlji. Ali morate se vratiti u zemlju. Ako se ne vratite, zemlja nema nikakav efekt od toga.
Povratak u zemlju posle studiranja u Americi nije lak, ali je neophodan zato što smo potrebni svojoj zemlji i to znanje koje tamo dobijemo i to iskustvo koje tamo dobijemo je potrebno Srbiji, a i u ostalom potrebno je da na jedan lep način prikazujemo svoju zemlju u inostranstvu, jer Fulbright zaista otvara sva vrata, ne samo u Americi, već i u mnogim zemljama na ovom svetu.
Šta biste poručili Fulbrajtovim stipendistima?
Da plate članarinu. Šalu na stranu, žele bi da se učlane u naše društvo, naše udruženje Fulbright i prijatelji. Ono se zove Fulbright i prijatelji jer ne obuhvata samo stipendiste koji su bili na Fulbrajtovom programu, nego i sve stipendiste koji su bili na programima edukacije, a koje finansira vlada Sjedinjenih Američkih Država.
Moja poruka je vrlo jednostavna, trajite još najmanje 60 godina.
Svojim prijateljima i prijateljicama u Fulbrightu i prijateljima želim da na što bolji način predstavljaju svoju zemlju i da na što bolji način predstavljaju ovaj program, jer ovaj program zaista menja živote i uvek treba svuda o tome da se priča. To je jedan od načina da budemo zahvalni za ovu privilegiju koja nam je data.
Želim da čestitam i da poželim da ova saradnja ovako u svetu jednostavno nikada ne prestane.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Filip Bikman. I'm the public diplomacy counselor here at the U.S. Embassy in Serbia. And on behalf of Ambassador Hill and our embassy, I just want to say welcome, particularly to our guests from outside of Serbia. We're so glad that you made the trip, and we're so glad that you're here to help celebrate what we think is a really incredible anniversary, a date that is really worth celebrating. And we didn't want it to go by without doing something kind of special. And I hope that you feel like me this morning, that this does feel like a good way to honor the Fulbright program throughout the establishment of the Fulbright program throughout the region. I've been a diplomat in the U.S. Foreign Service for just over 20 years. And I've spent the vast majority of that time living and working in this region. I've had the pleasure of living in Slovenia for 5 years, in Bosnia and Herzegovina for 3 years, and now I've been here in Serbia for 3 years. I love this region, and it's been an incredible opportunity for me to get to know the diversity of the region and the people of the region, the humor of this region, the food, and I see time and time again in all these different jobs that I've been in, the value of bringing people together. So far here in Serbia, we had an event about 1.5 years ago bringing together Hubert H. Humphrey alumni from across the region. We didn't have to bring together the small, tight-knit group of Ron Brown alumni. That program, sadly, doesn't exist anymore. But boy, it is a group of passionate, motivated, achieving people. They get together on their own, and the embassy just happens to kind of catch them and see them and welcome them when they do. Time and time again, when I see these groupings, it makes me realize how sort of natural they are, how much positive energy comes from bringing people together to talk about what challenges you all share and how to move forward. And I hope that that'll be part of today. Of course, a big part of today is thinking about the past 60 years and kind of celebrating the accomplishments of the Fulbright program, which really, in fact, are the accomplishments of all of you. But also, I hope that today, whether it's in the official program or the coffee breaks or lunch, folks can take some time to talk with colleagues and think about some of the challenges that we face here in the region, particularly in the academic sector, and think about ideas and maybe be creative and innovative about how we can work together to solve some of these challenges, how we can work together to bring people in academia closer together to work on the problems that we all face, whether they're problems inside this region or challenges we face from malign influence around the world. I'll tell you guys, I love the Fulbright so much, the Fulbright program so much. I am not a Fulbrighter, but I married one. My wife, who is at home with our 2 boys today, studied Middle Eastern history at Harvard and was a Fulbrighter in Amman, Jordan. So I have, despite not being an esteemed academic myself, I have tremendous respect for all of you and all the work that you've done in your careers. And all the work that you've done as part of the Fulbright program. So from deep in my heart, congratulations to all of you for all that you've done. Congratulations on the 60th anniversary. During turbulent times, which we seem to have had a lot of recently and probably in the near future, I think I know that I and a lot of people sort of try to search for this sense of a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning. For me, a big part of that is being something that's just bigger than me, right? Bigger than yourself. Yeah, this is a funny message coming from an American because our society is so individualistic in so many ways. But I feel like a lot of sense of purpose and meaning comes from being part of something bigger. Right? I hope that you all recognize and feel like one of the things that you're part of is Fulbright, and that it is a really incredible community, of course, in your individual countries, but here as a regional community and a worldwide community. And I hope that that can give you a sense, can help give a sense of kind of purpose and meaning. Good luck today. Enjoy the day. It should be kind of a fun, joyful day. It was nice last night to have the ambassador and the Minister of Science and Technology. That was kind of the more protocol portion always. I think it's nice to get over that hump to the sort of more fun, more casual portion. There should be a lot of good discussion. I think the panelists are going to be great. And I hope that people enjoy themselves and enjoy being in Belgrade. And have a wonderful day. Thank you. And of course, I should have said thanks to Ambassador Vujačić, Regina, Simona, Katerina, everyone who organized this great event. So thank you.
Well, we're going to try to keep a tight ship so Regina can wave at me when she sees I'm going too far. I want to talk about the Fulbright program a little bit. Our own Fulbrighters, our own program in the region, or what was Yugoslavia and then later, and some of the accomplishments, and about Senator Fulbright himself, because I think he deserves more than just a mention today. The Fulbright program is among the first of these programs of international study and exchange, and it served as an exceptional example to others. Senator Fulbright put it together immediately after being elected to the Senate in 1946. It is one of the most prestigious scholarships there is in the United States, for sure. I think everyone here knows this from personal experience. When you say you are a Fulbright scholar or with some kind of a joint program with anything associated with the Fulbright name, people start looking at you differently. And they look at you differently than they did before you uttered that sentence. that contains the Fulbright program in it. More than 370,000, probably more today, have been beneficiaries of this program. As was shown in the movie, 55 Fulbright alumni have won Nobel Prizes. 42 presidents and heads of state have been throughout the world, have been Fulbright alumni. Around 80 have won the Pulitzer Prize. And these numbers are going up as we speak, and every time I look, there's more and more because other people are being identified who got these prestigious awards. This does not capture the whole picture what the Fulbright program has done so far, but I hope that today we will assess what is done for the region and very specifically specific areas and ways. We all know of some achievements, and sharing them will certainly contribute to a better understanding of what has been done for all of us, not just personally, but for society as a whole and our countries. I'm just going to briefly turn to what was seen in the movie for the benefit of those who don't understand the language. In the movie, it's shown that Tito was the last statesman who saw Kennedy before Kennedy was killed, assassinated in Dallas. A month later, he came to the American embassy to sign the Book of Condolences. There have been talks of setting up the Fulbright program before, but there were obstacles on the way. And Walter Roberts, who was doing what Phil is doing now at the American embassy, made a pitch to Tito, and after that, Senator Fulbright came to Yugoslavia in the spring of '64, went to all these places that were shown, Belgrade, Zagreb, Dubrovnik, Brdo Kranja, saw Tito, and that year on this date, the Fulbright program was signed. It was the first time that the senator himself attended the signing ceremony, and Yugoslavia was the first socialist country to become part of the program. In this period, 1,768 scholarships were given to citizens and 706 of Yugoslavia and 766 to American professors, scholars, and students. The total sum comes to 2,534. And I need to mention that also, aside of these, there's joint programs, seminars, other types of interactions that were going on between the two, for the two countries. By the 1980s, Yugoslavia was the second country in Europe and third in the world in the number of Fulbright scholarships after West Germany and India. There was an association of Fulbright Scholars of Yugoslavia founded in 1989 to prepare for the 25th anniversary of the program. It was founded in September 1990, and then we all know what happened. The breakup came, and that was the end of that. However, the good news is that this program continued in all the regions, and all the states that came out of the former Yugoslavia have a Fulbright program. And your presence here is obviously the proof for that and evidence of that. Well, let me just say that we in Serbia have ample reasons to be proud of our members. Among our members is one federal deputy prime minister of the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, one deputy prime minister of Serbia, 2 ministers of the government of Serbia, 1 president of the Serbian Academy of Sciences and Arts, 3 other members of the academy, 3 presidents of universities in Serbia, 2 of University of Belgrade and 1 of Novi Sad, 4 ambassadors, a great number of deans, department heads, university professors, artists, journalists, and the founders of 2 centers of American studies, both of whom are here with us today and will be on these panels. I mentioned only these today, but there are many others contributing to our society. So yes, we do keep the spirit of the program alive. The spirit is closely related to the intentions of the founder, Senator Fulbright, about whom I wish to say a few words. He was an academic, a college professor, and I would say an intellectual, a U.S. Senator from Arkansas, elected in 1945. He initiated the founding of the program at once, as can be noted. He was concerned with peace in favor of united federal Europe. He was against the Bay of Pigs invasion. In fact, he told Kennedy so before it went on. Afterwards, in the room when everybody was gathered to analyze what happened, Kennedy looked at Fulbright and he said, "You're the only one who can tell me I told you so." After the Cuban Missile Crisis, he pushed for detente with the Soviet Union. He was against U.S. intervention in the Dominican Republic. He became a very vocal voice of dissent over the Vietnam War, and as chairman of the Foreign Relations Senate Committee, held hearings on the Vietnam War, which brought down heavy criticism of the war itself, the goals, policies, and the way the war was conducted, advocating for a peace agreement and U.S. withdrawal. Later, everybody agreed with him, but then he came under strong criticism. He was advocating the opening to China when it was in its radical phase during the Cultural Revolution, when no one in US politics dared to mention it. In those difficult times, he wrote a book that has a memorable title. It's called The Arrogance of Power. This title is used often as a phrase, but the book is a fascinating read, and I highly recommend it to everybody. The attitude above all others, quote, this is a quote from the book, which I feel is no longer valid, is the arrogance of power, the tendency of great nations to equate power with virtue and major responsibilities with universal missions. Basically, the book stresses the understanding of different points of view, dialogue, joint projects by adversaries that both see as mutually beneficial, and that will create more common ground for further cooperation. It also dissects the reasons for the failure of America's interventions in the Third World. Above all, he thought dissent was necessary. The universities should be at the forefront of criticism. This, I think, is his dictum that we should all think about, in my opinion, abide by. And here I quote again from his book. To criticize one's country is to do it a service and pay it a compliment. It is a service because it may spur the country to do better than it is doing. It is a compliment because it is evidence of a belief that the country can do better than it is doing. And again, another quote, criticism, in short, is more than a right. It is an act of patriotism, a higher form of patriotism, I believe, than the familiar rituals of national adulation. We in the region know all too well what infamous acts were done in the name of patriotism as others defined it. It should not be our definition. We should stick to what Senator Fulbright said. There's one quote, among others, when he, and this is fascinating because Senator Fulbright quotes Albert Camus in his letters to a German friend, and he talks about the sense of patriotism. But I will not go into that. It's a fascinating book, and you should read it. It's actually very, very up to date. You can read about the parts on China, and you will see what I mean. We need to be patriots like Senator Fulbright described them. He certainly was one. He stood for his criticism and principles and lost re-election in 1974. He lived for another 21 years and worked in the field of international law. He did not get rich. He made a difference. He made a difference for all those people who now make up what we belong to, the Fulbright family. He made a difference in our lives. He will continue to do it in the future for all those that at some point will share Fulbright scholarships. It is up to keep this alive. I want to say just a few words about keeping that spirit alive here in Serbia. As I said in the movie, this assassination was made out of spite because Milosevic had excluded us from the world, and we want to be part of it. And I want to thank the people that were running the association during those terrible years for keeping our flag up and on the map, and for interacting with other Fulbrighters in international conferences during that period. Many of the Fulbright scholars, some of whom you've seen last night, took an active role in opposing the Milosevic regime, and a number of them were honored in the Lifetime Achievement Awards last night. They stood up not only for professional excellence, but for values of freedom, human rights, rules of law, and democracy. In short, they were committed to defending values and shaping a better society. A number of Fulbright scholars are still engaged in these efforts as we speak. And they include not just people that were honored last night. I just wanted to say this in the introducing remarks, that our slogan, our motto, knowledge, values, and commitment, shaping a better society, is not an advertising slogan. It is something that we believe in and should live by, and some of us do. And I think that we all share this commitment to these values and to our societies and own to contribute back to them for what we were given as a Fulbright experience. Thank you very much.
Dear Professor Vujačić, dear fellow Fulbrighters, dear representatives of the U.S. Embassy in Belgrade and countries in the region, on behalf of the Croatian Fulbright Association, and there are 4 of us, actually Fulbright and Humphrey. I'm going to mention Senator and Vice President Humphrey in my speech today. I wish us all happy anniversary, and I'll try to give you just a couple of information how it all started and what actually happened between Yugoslavia and the United States exactly 60 years and 5 days ago. Because 60 years and 5 days ago, the famous Yugoslav ambassador in Washington, Veljko Mićunović, in his residence close to the DuPont Circle, hosted a party, a lunch, for Senator Fulbrighter and some other very important dignitaries, like the Assistant Secretary for Education and Culture and Assistant Secretary and Head of the Bureau of European Affairs, many of the journalists and others, because Fulbright was just about to leave for Yugoslavia to be the first, we've heard, the first time ever present when an agreement between one country, Yugoslavia, and the United States Fulbright program was about to be signed. And the whole atmosphere in the Yugoslav embassy was probably a little bit festive, not because of that relatively important event, but the elections have just finished, and these elections were very interesting in the light of very recent events, I would also say, because the Democrats then got 482 places in the Congress vis-a-vis electoral votes against the 52 for the Republicans. And in Senate, there were 68 Democrats against 32 Republicans, and even more in the House of Representatives. Barry Goldwater was heavily defeated. The most right-wing American candidate until that moment and until a couple of years ago. So the Yugoslavs were pleased, and that was opening a possibility for cooperation between Yugoslavia and the United States, especially because William Fulbright was highly acclaimed, and because many of his views, and some we've heard here, were shared between Belgrade and him. Everything he wrote, and which includes old myths and new realities, a speech he gave at the beginning of 1964, a speech in which he stressed several times the Yugoslav example, telling that the United States should not be overly sensitive vis-a-vis those who maybe claim that Khrushchev is better than Stalin, or that Fidel Castro might survive, and these things, that is not maybe endangering United States per se, and that the United States could live with these countries. Finally, it was not just communism, it was a communist imperialism, and those communist parties that were loyal to Moscow that were posing a threat. and that was Music to Yugoslav Ears, actually the same platform that the Yugoslavs were advocating since 1948. At the same time, Mićunović was advising his government in Belgrade that it is useful and good for the Yugoslav position in other parts of the world, especially in eastern parts of the European continent, to show with example that Yugoslavia can actually be very active everywhere, including in the United States, and that is improving overall Yugoslav diplomatic position. However, although the negotiations between Yugoslavia and Belgrade to sign or to join Fulbright agreement started already in 1959. There were several problems, and that was also overlapping with other problems within Yugoslavia. Recently, a book on Marko Nikezić was published, who was at that time Assistant Secretary of State here, and there were fights, internal strife between Yugoslav politicians who were closer, let's say, to the party line, and those who said, well, maybe we should appreciate the change in Soviet Union and try to find closer or to have closer relations with the Soviets, and those, especially in this State Secretariat for Foreign Relations, who remained nevertheless very attuned and afraid of what Moscow actually might do if Yugoslavia becomes too uncautious or if it ceases to stick to its line that was established in 1948. So things changed dramatically after the assassination in Dallas in 1963. As you've heard, Tito, not only in person, went to the American embassy. That was the first time ever that the head of the Yugoslav state went to any foreign embassy in Belgrade. He was deeply moved. And then it was realized that maybe the time was ripe to push for the Fulbright agreement. Already in the summer of 1964, certain American newspapers were publishing or published the news of the possibility of Yugoslavia signing the agreement, but it was obviously deliberately decided to wait for a while until the end of the elections, not to spoil the chances of the Democrats, I would say, because it wasn't maybe easy to explain to all that, and I'll quote Senator Fulbright here, that the Yugoslavs were not under the rigid Marxist thinking regime, and that there are going to be very many positive consequences and results of eventual signing of the Fulbright agreement between Yugoslavia and the United States. Fulbright then came to Yugoslavia for a 10-day-long visit. As I said, he was greeted in this city at the airport by his host during his 10-day-long visit, Vladimir Popović, who served as the Yugoslav ambassador to Moscow and Beijing and the United States immediately after 1948. His wife, Vera, who was very fluent in English, and other dignitaries who were present, and later he signed the agreement in Belgrade. Yugoslavia, and as well as world, was also passing through an interesting period, not only because vis-à-vis the American elections, but in 1964, just a month before all these events, Nikita Khrushchev was sacked in Moscow. Tito was at that time in Cairo at the second summit of the non-aligned. So there were many open topics to debate or to talk about. Fulbright then spent a couple of or some days in Belgrade, went to Novi Sad, went to Dubrovnik, went to Brioni, and went to Ljubljana, where he met with Edvard Kardelj. and then to Brdo near Kranj, where I presume one of the first lines Tito exchanged with Fulbright was that he just a couple of hours before that, or day before that, had greeted Kirk Douglas in Yugoslavia, his favorite actor at that time, who came as the UN ambassador traveling, the honorary ambassador traveling Yugoslavia or being in Yugoslavia. Fulbright program was not, of course, the first one Yugoslavia had with the United States. There was a Ford Foundation. Many of the politicians were going through some leadership exchange programs and so on. So there were experiences and there were people who knew the world. But Fulbright, as it was envisaged with a special office, and that office was established in Hotel Palace in Belgrade on the first floor, 2 rooms, and some of the Yugoslav diplomats who later played interesting or important role were in charge of the Fulbright Commission in Yugoslavia. I might say just, Gavro Altman, who was a very productive journalist and then editor-in-chief and ambassador to Vietnam eventually, with interesting books on non-alignment, among others. Ante Rukavina at the beginning, Momir Nikic at the end of the 80s, were in charge of the program. And probably these first couple of months were the most interesting because Yugoslavia didn't have enough time to organize the whole procedure, but immediately as the tender was opened, it had 187 candidates already in 1965, 131 for the first category of the younger scholars, and 66 for the B category of senior scholars, and then the whole procedure started. Now, maybe for the Americans it's less interesting, but for the Yugoslavs it was already interesting how to balance, which republics, which universities, who should be in charge, and even more, how many scholars from humanities and social sciences, and how many of those from technical and natural sciences. The Americans were interested in people like me, humanities, because, as they said, well, through them they can learn about the specificities of the Yugoslav socialist system and the way how people feel and stuff. The Yugoslavs, on the other hand, were interested in biologists and those in technical field, because they could, in their opinion, gain much more. So there was a tag of war for years, who and how and so on. Then there were candidates, like a candidate from Sarajevo, who eventually went to the United States, who did not get really a very flattering letter from Sarajevo. The dean of his institution said, well, that guy is a little bit heavy and not easy to deal with. But he nevertheless went because he was a very talented expert in English language. I know his name, I wrote even his name, he passed away recently. But it's interesting that when he came to Belgrade, he said, well, unfortunately, I live in a faraway part of Yugoslavia, there are no embassies, no consulates at that time. I cannot, I'm not that well informed about the whole procedure, but he was nevertheless accepted. And then already from next year onwards, with short and small adaptations, it became almost a routine. I could say that some 20 years later, or was it 15 years after the program has started, the Yugoslav secret police made an analysis of the whole program. And they even wrote in that material, that this can serve as a textbook for our agents, how to do that, how to assess what's interesting, what's not. You know, there were no really some too problematic, I would say, things from the secret police point of view. But it's interesting that some of the people they have interviewed later became a very, how to say, there was an interview with an archaeologist from Zagreb who was, let's say, very, very prominent on the nationalist side later, who was criticizing the Americans, that when American archaeologists come, they do not want to dig together with our archaeologists. They want to do the research on their own, you know, not to mix with ours, which was not in tune of the agreement. And then that guy whose name was Karakas, or pseudonym was Karakas from the Yugoslav secret police, said, well, some of them want to go to the islands that are off limit. So I presume that Vis was that place where they wanted to dig or to do a research, and that was not, of course, open, so that caused some of the tensions between the Yugoslavs and the Americans. But however, the program was smooth, as you've heard. Obviously, the American side was interested in having relatively many Yugoslavs coming, since after the Federal Republic, Yugoslavia had the most numerous program. Lyndon Johnson, who was then elected 60 years and 7 days ago to this day, Lyndon Johnson chose for his running mate Senator Hubert Humphrey, and Hubert Humphrey it was his idea to launch another program, and Croatian Fulbright and Humphrey Association are now working together for all of those who used the opportunity to go to the States through that line. I was Fulbrighter in Georgetown, where I normally go because of the archives, Washington, D.C. When I was there during that year, and my experiences are the same as all of you who privately said that it was very important, that in many different ways, I had a chance to meet a sister of Senator Hubert Humphrey. And she was a secretary of Eleanor Roosevelt, so in many different ways for a historian that was an interesting event. But that was just one of the things or the doors that were opened that year when I was in DC area. And many more doors were opened thanks to Fulbright afterwards. So, fellow Fulbrighters, dear organizers, on behalf of the Zagreb crew, congratulations to all of us. Thank you.
So like I said, I'm just going to introduce Professor Majkl Verner. He's a very modest man. He gave me a CV about 3 sentences long, but I will read it anyway. Majkl Verner is an emeritus professor of Roman art, archaeology, with over 50 years of experience dealing with Roman archaeological sites in the Western Balkans. Currently working on developing Roman sites for heritage tourism and other historic preservation projects. He's was from Albany, New York, again. But there's one more thing I want to say. He's also a Serbian in-law. He's a Serbian Zet. And that is an institution in itself. The closest you come to God in Serbia is being a Serbian Zet. So without further ado, please, Majkl, take the floor.
Hvala, profesore. Ja sam obećavao moju suprugu da neću da spomenem to, mislim, kao vi znate kako je opasno u Sremu. Tako da. Ja sam teo da počnem ovako. Poštovani Fulbrajtovci i prijatelji, meni je velika čast da sam pozvan da učestvujem u ovoj proslavi 60. godišnjice Fulbright u ovom regionu. I wanted to start that way just to show you a tangible result of my almost 50 years of Fulbright experience, that at least I've come to a sort of preliminary understanding of the richness of the Serbo-Croatian language. I'm going to start by acknowledging all of the help that I've had in the various projects we've worked on here, and to point out right at the beginning, number one, I have been on VIS, and number two, all the projects I worked on through the years have always been joint Yugoslav-American or Serbian-American projects. I wouldn't do it any other way. I started in 1967 in a small town in Herzegovina in Bilica, working on a salvage excavation in advance of a hydroelectric project that was going to cover large acres with a hydroelectric dam and lake behind it. And so I was put out in the field of the harsh karst country there with 6 young men, teenagers, to be my workmen, and lo and behold, with the exigencies of archaeology, we uncovered the beginnings of a 30-room Roman villa rustica with mosaic pavements, very well executed. The best mosaic still hangs in the Zamovski Museum in the stairwell in Sarajevo today. At least I think it's still there. So I have to indulge in a little bit of biographical information for you to sort of lay the groundwork for a long series of Fulbright experiences. After 1967, I started in the next 4 summers, 1968, 1969, 1970, and 1971, working intensively on 2 archaeological projects, joint excavations in Diocletian's Palace in Split, and excavations that turned out to be in the Roman Imperial Palace and Circus in Sremska Mitrovica, which we know as Roman Sirmium. Because I decided to do archaeology instead of classical philology. That leads us into my first Fulbright grant, which was a dissertation grant to do background research on Roman architecture in Dalmatia in preparation for completing a PhD at Stanford University on the architecture of Diocletian's Palace in Split. I had my own keys to the podrum in Split in Diocletian's Palace there, and that really was the beginning of 30 years of continuous activity every summer on some sort of archaeological project in this part of the world. I didn't want to forget at the beginning to acknowledge the fact that when you're dealing with archaeology today, we have to be involved with what we should call Timski Rad. It's not just one me, or I'm not just being autobiographical in what you're going to hear that follows. I have to acknowledge the help, the assistance, and the really glad cooperation of my colleagues here in this region right here, in the various ministries, the Ministry of the Economy and the Ministry of Culture, Opština Sremska Mitrovica, and last but certainly not least, I have enjoyed a great deal of fruitful collaboration with our colleagues in the American Embassy. And we have been privileged us in Sremska Mitrovica. Every ambassador would cheerfully come and visit us and focus the attention that an American ambassadorial visit brings when we show that we're working in a collaborative archaeological project. Archaeology as part of culture doesn't always take priority in budgeting in these financially tough times, but nonetheless, we still stand for culture. So I have to compliment the public affairs section of the American Embassy. That's what I knew as public affairs. And the successive attachés, Mrs. Stankovic, Maria Belopetrovic, and others that have been really great collaborators and a great assistance in forwarding our work, which I'm now going to describe briefly for us here. We start with the first Fulbright grant in 1971, which was background research in Roman architecture in Dalmatia. I shouldn't use that word, I shared the time between Zagreb and Split, looking at, first of all, research in the museum library of the Archaeological Museum in Zagreb, and then in the field on the Dalmatian coast, up and down, looking at Roman monuments to compare with Diocletian's Palace in Split. So that was the beginning. From there, we have to sort of get into not exactly a hiatus, because from the 1970s, 1980s, and lastly, 1991, I was co-managing is the word I wanted to use, archaeological projects with colleagues from the Archaeological Institute here in Belgrade and from the National Museum at Krakow, Jordan, a site you probably have not heard of, near Kučevo in eastern Serbia, at around Mount Kosmaj near the village of Stojnik, a Roman mining location, and the last site, a Roman military base near Kneževac, when then that particular grant fell apart because of the breakup of what we knew as Stara Yugoslavia. After that, I think I was along with my spouse, one of the first archaeologists to be invited back into the country and in Serbia, and we started looking at collaborative projects once again here. And I sort of, Professor Petkovic has sort of kidded me this morning, I'm not jumping in and out of archaeological trenches anymore, I'm not that spretan, but we have switched our attention to historic preservation and presenting Roman archaeological sites in the Balkans for heritage tourism. In other words, to make them economically more feasible. I'll never say completely self-sustaining. So that my first Fulbright grant in 2012, first Fulbright Core Scholar Grant, was in building up information and selecting archaeological sites. Now we're based here in Belgrade, but these are archaeological sites in Croatia, Bulgaria, Romania, and Serbia to be part of what we know as the International Roman Emperor's Route, which also involved very fruitful, and I'm happy to say, good collaboration with our colleagues from the economics faculty at Belgrade University. That has grown the result of, the result of the Core Scholar Grant is that the Roman Emperor's Route was approved as an EU cultural route in 2015 and has been renewed several times successfully as a certified cultural route, which is a great boon to cultural tourism in this part of the world. From those 4 location sites, from those 4 countries, we have now grown to 10 countries. Later on, the EU Regional Commission in Sarajevo invited our agency, our managing institution here, the Danube Competence Center, to include Bosnia and Herzegovina, Albania, Severna Macedonia, and Crna Gora in the process. We now actually have Slovenia and Hungary. So we have more than 24 Roman archaeological sites that are being featured for cultural tourism and various heritage projects. So that's an outgrowth of the research on my first, not the economic part of it, but the archaeological part of it, I have to hasten to say. And using that information, and this is a bit tricky for an American to do, I wrote the conceptual background for the cultural route in a European context, which is a little bit different from an American context, but nonetheless, it went through and was, and as I've said, been successfully renewed. That's an ongoing project, and even though I'm retired from the university today, I'm still involved in consultation and active involvement in that project. The second Core Scholar Grant comes with a more specific site location, and this is a location for a number of reasons near and dear to me. 50 miles west of here, approximately along the Autoput, we have Sremska Mitrovica, which in Roman times from about 290 AD on through the 4th century, and here you have to be very conscious of your Roman history. The town of Sirmium was an actual capital of the Roman Empire, more important than Rome, more important than Milano or any other center at that point in time. Because the Roman emperors had the habit of, when they passed a law, they would date it and give the location of where they were when the law was passed. So with the Roman Imperial Palace, which we certified the existence of in the excavations in the late 1960s, early 1970s, with the Imperial Palace there, I can say definitely that the Emperor Constantine, for example, spent 502 days there. And that gives you an idea, a way to gauge the importance of what's happening in this region in the Roman period, something that's sort of overlooked as we as we pass along, but which we've been working very industriously to try to put on the map. So my second core scholar grant was to deal with the one surviving element of interior decoration in the Imperial Palace in Sremska Mitrovica, namely roughly 75 square meters of mosaic pavements. And so year by year, we have been restoring probably one room of mosaic pavements. But what kicked that process off was the involvement of an Ambassadors Fund for Cultural Preservation grant. We selected the one room in the Imperial Palace, which is sort of well-preserved, which has a complete mosaic floor preserved, and which also had a marble fountain in it. So it was probably a residential room, a living room, or something like that, as much as we can say, because we don't have any surviving furniture from the room. The barbarians took care of all that business. And so we were lucky to, with the help of our colleagues at the embassy, to successfully compete with all the embassies all around the world for funding for restoration of the mosaic pavement, of an important one, which in fact was an earlier one, which has a representation of a Roman divinity on it and now hangs on the wall in the Imperial Palace. From there, we have gone on to do room after room. The cost, roughly speaking in American dollars, to restore one mosaic room, and this is more or less a rough estimate, is about $100,000. But all of that has now been financed by the Republic of Serbia, the Ministry of Culture, mainly because I think we put it on the map and had a very good seed money process with the Ambassadors Fund grant. I'll close with just two other sort of collateral, not collateral damage, but collateral benefits to the host country in doing the work I've been describing to you. We have now, I wrote a successful Ambassadors Fund grant proposal for Viminacium and the initial research on the Roman amphitheater there. That was featured very prominently with the opera Aida in the celebration of the Edict of Milan anniversary. I won't comment further on that, but, and then with the help of the current Attaché for Culture from the embassy and Maria Bela Petrovic, we made, and Professor Petkovic, we made an emergency run to Romuliana kod Zaječara to get the paperwork in order for an ambassador's, a successful application for restoration of part of the imperial burial complex at Romuliana. Romuliana, incidentally, probably between Italy, northern Italy and Aquileia and Thessaloniki, is some of the best preserved Roman architecture on the Balkans. So that is my, not so personal, I hope, but my Fulbright experience. Hvala na pažnju.
Again, as you know, this problem. Horrible. Okay. Good morning and warm welcome to Fulbright alumni, to members of the Fulbright and Friends Association, and our esteemed guests from the United States and from the region who have gathered here today to celebrate this important anniversary. It is both an honor and pleasure for me to introduce the Fulbright Program Digital Archive in Serbia and Yugoslavia, not only as a historian, but also as a proud member of Fulbright and Friends Association. The Fulbright Digital Archive, created to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the program, not only preserves the legacy of the Fulbright program, but also invites reinterpretation, highlighting its role in fostering cultural exchange and strengthening bilateral relations. For 60 years, the Fulbright program has shaped generations of professionals who returned with fresh perspectives and expertise. They brought back not only knowledge and skills from America, but also a spirit of innovation and a commitment to positive social change. This digital collection of their contributions offers a unique lens to trace the evolution of scholarship and education in the region and to understand how individuals have transformed their communities through this international partnership. Among the most significant documents in the archive are those that trace the program's beginnings, starting with Senator Fulbright's visit to Yugoslavia and the signing of the agreement that opened doors to educational and cultural exchange. The archive includes key documents by decade, spanning through the early 2000s. In addition to official materials from the archives of Yugoslavia, the archive of Fulbright and Friends Association, press materials from the National Library of Serbia, photographs from the Museum of Yugoslavia. It contains select dossiers of Fulbright alumni who, as leading experts from the region, enriched American universities and research centers with their knowledge, skills, and innovative ideas. The alumni's memories and recollections add special values to the archives. These memories, alongside photographs of their experience in the United States, illustrate personal transformations and professional successes achieved through this mutual exchange. Through preserving these memories, we honor past generations of Fulbrighters and inspire future students and researchers to actively participate in this international academic community. The Fulbright Program Digital Archive in Serbia and Yugoslavia was created as a part of collaboration between the Fulbright and Friends Association and the Center for American Studies at the Faculty of Philosophy. The project could have never been done without the dedicated efforts of two PhD candidates from the Center for American Studies, Katarina Beširović, who also serves as secretary of the Fulbright and Friends Association, and Sanja Lukić, Sanja, whose doctoral research focuses on the Fulbright program in Yugoslavia. Within the Center for American Studies, both are dealing with American-focused topics and have been pivotal in the organization of this event. From the bottom of my heart, I wish them both the opportunity to one day join the ranks of Fulbright scholars themselves. And we extend our deep gratitude to the Archives of Yugoslavia and its director, Dr. Vladimir Terzic, the National Library of Serbia and its director, Vladimir Pištalo, as well as the Museum of Yugoslavia and its director, Nejda Knežević. Our profound thanks go to Professor Radmila Pešić, a distinguished Fulbright alumnus and a member of the Fulbright and Friends Association, and really a good friend, who has tirelessly preserved the memory of the association and its activities. We are also grateful to all Fulbright alumni who generously shared their memories. To bring our vision to life, the support of the US Embassy was essential, and we are thankful for their assistance in making a part of the Fulbright program's history accessible to the academic community and the wider public. Thank you, Filip Bikman, thank you, Vukica Stanković, and thank you, Tijana Jugović. And now, I invite you to dive into the treasures of our archive with me and Katarina, who will be literally my right hand on a mouse. So let's explore some of the remarkable highlights that bring the Fulbright legacy to life. And of course, we will start with the establishment of the program. And you will see a number of documents, but we will show now agreement between the United States and Yugoslavia. You can see original document, and you also have other versions of document in Serbian and Serbo-Croat from Archive of Yugoslavia. Then we can go, for example, to see how the press covered this really important event, to see the party, the Ili Borba, on 10th of November, 1964. Now we can go, and of course we are showing really the small collection. The collection is much bigger, and you can do it yourself. But let's go, for example, to bulletin from 9th November, 1964, I think, because you have, Katja, can you go a little bit up just to show this, what is that bulletin, yeah, of the Embassy of the United States. Then you see about the agreement, and then if you scroll down, you see what Tvrtko Jakovina talked about. at the same day, it was a meeting of Tito with Kirk Douglas. So it says a lot, about Yugoslav-American relations in the 60s. You have signing of such an important agreement and then meeting with Kirk Douglas. And then we can also show Politica, prominent daily newspaper, also from 10th November, for example. So about the signing of agreement. And now we will just we have chosen one or two documents from each decade to illustrate what we have. So let's go to the 60s, to Politica, 18 September 1965, to see announcement, how people should apply and where to go. You will see the address that also Tvrtko mentioned, Hotel Palace, etc. And also one important document from the 60s, not a very nice one, about information about the fire in the Fulbright office. It was in 1969, and because of that, we have some dossiers that are missing of Fulbright alumni from 1964 till 1969. We can now skip 60s and go to the 70s. And to see, for example, it was a magazine of American Embassy, let's say propaganda magazine of American Embassy called Pregled. It's a number from 1978. But at the beginning, you can see a nice word from the first and 10th anniversary that Senator Fulbright wrote on that occasion. Maybe Katarina can read it in Serbo-Croat because I cannot see that.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm so sorry for anyone who doesn't understand it. And hello again. Američki i jugoslovenski naučnici i studenti koji su uzeli učešće u programima ove komisije pomogli su da svaka strana bolje upozna stvarnost i težnje one druge, proširujući na taj način tradicionalne veze prijateljstva između Sjedinjenih država i Jugoslavije. Prilikom ove važne godišnjice izražavam svoju nadu da će komisija i dalje činiti napore u pravcu uzajamnog razumevanja. I čestitke senatora Fulbrighta povodom 10-godišnjice Fulbrightove komisije 1974.
And this is a really nice document because I think on 8 pages you have different stories about the Fulbright program and Fulbright, these connections and students that went in first 10 years. Now we can go to the 80s, and I love that one invitation for 20 years of Fulbright celebration. And as you can see in English, and then in Serbian, if you see down in the left corner, it was in Hotel Metropole. So we were amazed when we were looking at these things and saw that we are, so many years after, 20, and then it's 40 years after, we're on the same day in the same place. And also a nice brochure from the same year. Oh, it is also interesting, that one. Katarina can put a little bit bigger the schedule for this celebration of 20 years. And as you can see, they have 10 minutes talk and they finish at 1:30 and had cocktail and lunch. So you're going to work much more today. And now going to not so nice 90s. And 90s started actually very nice. Let's go to Politica, 28th of September. First 25 years of Fulbright program in Yugoslavia with a nice multimedial concert at Kolarac. So it started very nice. But let's go to the other document, which is not so nice, and even the name is not nice, In Memoriam. It was in memoriam for Fulbright programs because it stopped its activities in May 1992. But the next document shows the vitality of people from Fulbright program and Fulbright alumni because it's on the same day, like today, 9th November 1992, the Assembly Association of Fulbright Alumni was founded. And this is something that is very, very important and very nice. And Radmila Pešic's collection of these documents from the awful 90s shows that despite Milošević regime and sanctions and everything, Fulbright alumni did a really impressive amount of conferences, works, and being together. And we don't have much time, but I want to show you two more things. One is files of the scholars. So we just took 10 of them, really different kinds of persons. So let's start with Olja Ivanitzki, because she was really famous painter, to see, for example, her application to apply, for Fulbright scholars. I don't know, Katarina, if you can just read what was her topic.
So her topic, again, I'm sorry for the language right now, četvoromesečni rad u ateljeu, susreti sa istaknutim američkim slikarima, mlađim slikarima, predstavnicima raznih pravaca i studentima slikarstva.
And then we can go to next file of really famous film director Srđan Điđa Karanović. You can see his application form. And he wanted to study in the early 80s cable TV, one of the things. And the second one is...
I'm sorry. Tema za proučavanje kablovska televizija kao novi oblik bioskopa i nova tematska opredeljenja koje omogućavaju ovakav oblik distribucije i tema za predavanje savremeni jugoslovenski film, specifičnost položaja filmskog reditelja u okvirima jugoslovenske i evropske filmske tradicije.
But more important, Fulbright exchange was not only learning about something from the States, but showing the best of you. So you can see 3 or 4 different invitations for talks with Srđan Karanović. There is also a projection of his film Petrin Venac na Harvardu, at Harvard University. So it really says a lot about, this true exchange. And the last file is really something that I love. Application form of Slavoj Žižek. And Katarina, you can just read, you see Žižek and what he wanted to study there.
He wanted to study psihoanalitički pristup univerzumu američkog kriminalističkog romana i filma.
And there is much more, so we really have a small time to show you only small parts of what we found. But at the end, I think what is the most important, and we really enjoyed in collecting this, it is alumni memories of all of you. And when we started collecting this, our idea were it would be great if we would have 5 to 10, memories. Now, in this situation, we have memories of 35 Fulbright alumni together with 8 more from other programs. And it is beautiful. I have impression that I really met you through these memories. And they're really wonderful. And I encourage those who haven't yet shared theirs to send their memoirs and photographs, thus becoming part of the history of our association and U.S. government scholarships, and even knows to say pay membership. And I say, please send us your memories. And first one to send is President Ivan Vujačić, who owns that. So at the end, I will just leave 2 or 3 minutes to Katja to show you some, the best parts from your personal memories.
You already seen that I went through some photographs because I wanted you to see how much great materials all of the alumni from Serbia had sent us, and I really enjoyed in making this part of the archive, I must say. It is truly my favorite part. I will keep showing you some more photos here, and you can see the winner of Adam Santos, you can see the winner of our annual award. This is one of my favorites. So the text is very, very good from Professor Tibor Varadi. You can read it. He's actually talking about his experience as first Eastern European to go to Harvard to study, and he was, he sent us his photos and also an announcement of a lecture. So that's very inspiring. And I kind of wanted let's see some more photos. Okay, Milica Pecic, they're very beautiful.
Beautiful photos, yeah.
But what I wanted to conclude with is, again, I'm so sorry for the language, but I wanted to conclude with something that Professor Radojka Vukčević wrote, and she concluded her text and memories with this, saying that ostvarena je moja vizija američkog sna tokom prve i druge Fulbrajtove stipendije. Saznanja o američkoj književnosti i kulturi su se slagala, zapisivala i prenosila na studente tokom više od 3 decenije, obogaćena mnoštvom susreta, razgovora, pročitanih knjiga. Zahvaljujući upravo ovim susretima, razgovorima i bibliotekama, slika o moje viziji američkog sna se zaokružila i, nadam se, dala podstrek generacijama koje su je pratile. So with this, I would conclude this part and...
Yeah, we are definitely calling you because it's open. We are going to work more on this because it's really valuable and we are very proud of that. And thank you, Katja and Sanja, once again for this. And now it's coffee break.